This is the Times of India Health Plus podcast. It's where we explore specially curated conversations, wellness trends, and lifestyle tips from the TOI newsroom. Stay informed, stay healthy.
I'm your host, Shrirupa Ray. Today, we're going to talk about something all of us have felt at some point in our lives. That's right, Monday morning blues. Have you ever wondered why that happens? Why people literally drag their sleepy selves to work at the beginning of the week after a weekend of late night partying or OTT binge? It's not just your mind refusing to wake up to the grind. It's also your body telling you it's not ready for the rigor yet. You know, there's actually a term for this. It's called social jet lag. And to explain exactly what that means and how it takes a double toll on the mind and body, we have with us today two experts. Dr. Manveer Bhatia, a senior neurologist and sleep specialist from Delhi, and Rohini Rajiv, a senior psychotherapist from Bengaluru. Dr. Bhatia, a former professor at AIIMS Delhi, is founder of the Neurology and Sleep Center with 35 years of experience. Ms. Rajiv has been into mental health care for more than 24 years. She's the founder director of the Able Mind and also serves as a non-official member of the Karnataka State Mental Health Authority. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Bhatia and Rohini. Great to have both of you here with us today. So, Dr. Bhatia, let's begin with you first. Social jet lag, it's a baffling term, right? Could you first explain how jet lag happens and then go on to tell us why social jet lag is termed so?
So we have an internal body clock, and this is controlled by like a master controller, which is in the brain, and that synchronizes all our little clocks all over the body, which manage all our functions, whether it is eating, whether it is behavior, whether it is hormones, mood, etc. So jet lag is when your internal body clock is out of sync with the outside world or the environment. Now, that was a jet lag. That is, you're traveling across time zones. Social jet lag is when we change this clock based on our behavior. So, whether it is work, whether it is entertainment, whether it is Netflix, whether it is Insta. So, we are altering our night behavior just because of our own efforts, and that is a social jet lag.
So, in your clinical practice, are you seeing more people in India sort of struggling with social jet lag? What seems to be the reason for that?
So I think it's the general connectivity which has increased and this availability of everything that we have on the digital space all through the day and night. So that's one big aspect. And people, so it's coming in all ages. It starts around teenage when people start and scrolling, and there is something called this doom scrolling that you cannot kind of put an end to it. So before you realize, many hours have passed. I see it in the women who feel every day. I find that they say that I feel that this is my time for myself, so then I'm
Right.
sleeping later and later, and their bedtime or the wake up time is fixed, so that creates a problem. And then we have the elderly who are again staying up till very late because sleep does become an issue with the elderly. So, worldwide literature, we have lots of information now. It was said to be 14%, 15, but last data shows that it's almost 30%. And they're saying one in every three person or an individual might be suffering from this condition called social jet lag.
My God, that's like a lot.
That's a lot, yes.
So let's come to you, Rohini, now. We are always sort of glued to our screens for work and for pleasure. How does too much screen time lead to social jet lag?
Thanks, Shrirupa. We can focus on just two pathways that leads to social jet lag when it comes to, sleep suppression, like Dr. Bhatia was talking about. One is the direct correlation between melatonin and the blue screen. If you're aware, there's a lot of conversation about blue screens impacting, blue light impacts sleep, to put it very simply, right? So when there is, excessive emission of blue light coming through your screens, the melatonin supply reduces, and automatically your sleep quality reduces. You sleep late, etc. So that's the first reason that sort of comes in the way of how social jet lag starts to happen. Secondly, again, what Dr. Bhatia was talking about, why we consciously do it ourselves. So it results in something called physiological arousal, or we let our social media bleed into our sleep time. So, literal cognitive bleeding sort of starts happening when we engage in stimulating activities. For example, we check our mail, we go through constant doom scrolling, like she was talking about, or we play games. Some of us, prefer playing games as well, which requires us to be alert. So the more alert we are, the more difficult it becomes for us to sort of wind down and calm down. So it these two things are primarily responsible for screen time sort of leading into social jet lag.
So Dr. Bhatia was saying that, she sees it among women and the elderly. So do you sort of have like an age bracket where like, is it younger folk or people of all ages, indiscriminate ages?
Women and children, children as in teenagers, youth. Where's the time, right? There's a lot of people, especially when they're stuck in like a 10-hour, 12-hour work day. Post that, they don't have time to go and socialize with friends like we used to do when we were younger, right? So the easiest thing for them to do is either get in touch with them through social media, or simply result in scrolling and checking out reels or watching something just to unwind. It's considered as unwinding, but it's not really so much age dependent. It's quite age agnostic, if you ask me. And there is something called an executive Sunday, if you know what I mean. That people who wake up at a certain time during the week feel that, oh, I've not had enough sleep, so I'm going to sort of sleep in on Saturdays and I'm sleeping in on Sundays. And then there's something called a midpoint in the sleep pattern. Like, some if for example, if you sleep at 10 p.m. every night and you wake up at 7 a.m., your midpoint would be those number of hours. Say 10 to 6 would be what your midpoint would be, around 1 o'clock, perhaps 1 or 2 o'clock. And if you sort of stretch it on a weekend, you sleep around 2 or 3 a.m., and then you wake up around 11 or 12 a.m. So you move that midpoint by 3 hours to 4 hours significantly. So that's like moving time zones, right?
Right.
So we
Yeah.
do that because we feel that, okay, this is my break, this is my weekend. That's pretty much a jet lag that we're talking about. So it is age agnostic, but more so in among youngsters and people like me as well. Like I was discussing that with you, Shri Rupa, last week, right?
Oh,
This is my
yes.
time and I need to sort of
You're
unwind.
vehemently very, very protective
Yeah, but
about
my morning
that.
routine doesn't change. I still have to wake up at the same time.
Right, right. So, Dr. Bhatia, let me come back to you. Like Rohini was saying that, we have two sleep times, one for the weekdays and one for the weekend. So, how important is it to sleep and wake up around the same time every day? Why do we need to do that? And what really happens if we don't do that?
Yeah, I think this is the whole issue which the youngsters are now focusing on, because according to them, they have read that you should get 8 hours of sleep. So whether you sleep at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., they add those 8 hours and say that I am okay as long as I get my 8 hours. But sleep has numerous dimensions. So we have quantity, which is what they are calculating, but we have quality, and we have something called as timing. And that is why we are coming back to this jet lag or social jet lag, and this issue about why to sleep at a fixed time and wake up at a fixed time. Not only that, why to sleep at a right time. So fixed could be 2 a.m. till the noon. That's not what we are saying. So we are saying normal bedtime, like whatever, 10, 11, 12, and waking up at 8. So this is because of this process called as a circadian rhythm, which I mentioned earlier. So this is a physiological control of all our functions, the hormones, the energy production, the immunity, the brain clearing, the cardiovascular health, your glucose regulation, and your memory. So, if we disrupt these functions, all these pathways can get affected. So, example is that if melatonin, as we mentioned, needs to start rising by the evening, peaks at night and comes down, and it has a neuroprotective. So melatonin is not only a sleep inducing hormone, it has anti-inflammatory action, it has neuroprotective action. So if we do not allow it to rise, that means if you're on the screens when it should be rising, you will affect your health. Second is cortisol is a very important hormone, which is highest in the morning when you wake up, and it has to ebb through the day. But because we stay awake at night and we stay engaged, like Rohini was mentioning, you will stimulate your cortisol production. So you are continuously charged. So with this hormone is does what is called as flight and fright. So you are in this very hyper kind of mode. So this can lead to increased blood pressure, restlessness, brain fog, not feeling rested, etc. This also affects our other endocrine hormones like glucose metabolism, insulin secretion, thyroid, and also testosterone. So I we are also saying as sleep specialists, and also it controls your mood. So there is a time at night when this centers which are for emotional regulation are working very well. So if you disrupt them, you become a more irritable and an angry person. So I've seen a lot of patients in our experience who are complaining that yesterday, in fact, I saw, he said, I do feel that I am, and it takes a lot of time for them to express it, that I'm become a more irritable and I feel I'm getting more angry. So because they're sleeping at 3 a.m. and sometimes they get sleep deprivation, that's a separate problem, but sometimes they are into the social jet lag. I had a lady, she's sleeping at 5 a.m., getting up at noon, and she's now obese and she's depressed, and this depression is feeding into this whole thing. At night she's on the screens. So then her thing is that I don't have anything to do in the morning, I don't want to face the household, whatever is happening around her. So there are numerous reasons why people push themselves into this phenomena. So I think overall, let's just say that it affects almost every small little keg peg in your whole body, and you just don't feel good. So we call it something called as quality of life. So
Right,
people are not feeling good.
right. So, Dr. Bhatia, you were talking about a master clock. Remember, it's like one big clock which sort of ticks all the cells of our body. So, could you explain a bit about that and how all of that
So there's a
sort of.
master clock. It's like situated deep in the brain. It's called the pineal gland, which secretes as a suprachiasmatic nucleus, which secretes this melatonin. And then you have tiny clocks in almost every cell of the body. So imagine, it's like an analogy we give is like an orchestra. So you have a conductor who starts off by saying, okay, it's time to beat, it's time to do this. So the clock controls that, and that clock is regulated by three things. One is the light, the outside natural sunlight. So people earlier on, our bodies were in sync with this light. That means it was dark, you would eat and get into bed. The sun rises, you are up. So that situation, okay, I agree with my patients that we are out of it now, but still we cannot cross like midnights. So that's the light. Second is the food, the eating habits regulate that clock. So that's why we say that, if you eat at proper times, fixed times, you are regulating. So people who are getting up at noon, so they miss one meal, they will have one meal, and the last meal will come past midnight. But that will affect, so a lot of them will have gut problems. All of them are coming with gut problems, bloating, indigestion, cramps, all that. Because the hormones in your gut, let's say, or the stomach, the acid has to stop secretion at night. But if we keep chewing and eating, we are pushing that acid up.
Correct.
So that's what it does. So these tiny clocks are doing that. And the third one is activity, which we can. So, how to regulate is by these three things. So, the more active you are in the day, you will also get good quality sleep.
So, that was the physiological bit, right?
Yeah, very big. So, the recent article, I'll just say that came out in 2026, in fact, just a few months ago, which has put this whole thing very nicely in a nutshell, that the disruption of the circadian system is exactly what we are talking about, is like one of the biggest risk factors for inflammation. So when there is inflammation in the body, and they've gone into very great depths of this article, but basically saying that when it increases your inflammation, your chances of autoimmune disorders, up to cancer, brain disorders, metabolic, all increase. So they have shown a direct link. So why the timing of sleep is important, not only the duration.
Right. So, Rohini, let's get back to you again. So, this was about the physiological aspect. What about the mental health repercussions. How does social jet lag affect your mental health?
So, like Dr. Bhatia was talking about, there is a lot of research that's getting published in correlation between mental health or common mental disorders and disruptive circadian rhythm, right? So, if you talk about it, it's important for us to understand that while studies are still going on, there seems to be a very positive correlation between depressive symptoms and lack of sleep or a circadian rhythm disruption. A lot of journals, including the Journal of Affective Disorders, most recently, I remember they talk about SJL having a significant impact due to not just the circadian rhythm cycles, but also the serotonin release, which is your happy hormone, as they call it, right? Less sleep, more irritable, and the flight and fight, the cortisol levels keep increasing, obviously, so serotonin sort of reduces. Apart from that, you know about the metabolic stress that happens. What does that really mean? It means that a higher BMI, she was talking about sugar, the glucose impact as well, right? And it results in secondary impacts on people, which means that their mood starts getting affected. They become more irritable. They poorer self-esteem is noted in people as well. So sleep is such an important component, not just people know about REM sleep, but they don't understand what that REM sleep actually means, right? What happens to us when we sleep? Cells regenerate, we stabilize, we learn to calm down. There are so many things that we can do simply by following a routine. That routine becomes really critical because cognitive decline is another impact of disrupted circadian rhythm, which means that if you know the prefrontal cortex, it's a decision making part, our impulse control part of our brain. Poor circadian rhythm, which means poor sleep habits, results in people being very impulsive, poor emotional regulation in people, and aspects like that. So this definitely impact on mental health is there, and there is a lot of work that's happening to understand the impact in the depths of it. So that's going on right now.
So now for the question, Rohini, which everybody wants to know the answer to, that is, how do we wean people off screens? And what other like mental exercises, mindful practices that
Yeah,
can help you
yeah.
overcome social jet lag?
No, absolutely. Just look at it from, suppose you're going on a holiday and you're staying in a hotel where they have something called a sundowning service, turn down service as they call it, right? They close the screens, they turn on the AC,
Right.
dim the lights. So you go in back to the room and you feel like, oh my God, this is like so cozy. So cozy comes from that. Cool, comfortable, and ready to sort of hit the sack. That's the first thing that's important, the transition into a sort of a digital sunset, as you might want to sort of call it, right? 60 minutes if you can of no screen time before bedtime, if you can, is very important, because it's the easiest thing for us to do is to browse the phone, listen to an audible, or read book on a Kindle. It makes a big difference if you're picking up a book, an actual book, turning on the light and reading the book. Replacing digital screens to something that is more physical. Also a bit of journaling. You do a sort of cognitive download, which means that what do you need to do tomorrow? Most of us think about it before going to bed. I mean, each of us have our own priorities. Either it's work related, or what khana kya banana hai. Has have things been done? Has the door been locked? What are the things I need to do in the morning? If we kind of write it down, we tell our brains that, okay, you know what, it's sorted. Now I can calm down, listen to some music perhaps, do whatever it takes to calm down rather than browse and sort of stimulate ourselves, right? Mindfulness practices, definitely important. So the cognitive offloading that I was talking about, writing things down, is a part of the mindfulness practice. Apart from that, any non sleep related rest, right? Deep rest. So one of the suggestions I may have is our viewers can actually do the rest quiz, restquiz.com. If they can go and get the rest quiz done, they will know that there are 7 kinds of rest that all of us need, and what rest is something that is really bothering them will come out in those tests. So for a lot of times, what I see in my clients is cognitive rest is very high. People really need that, which means that digital detox is critical for them. है
Right.
ना? So
Right.
either yoga nidra or some sort of progressive muscle relaxation, anything that calms you down is highly impactful to reduce us from a high alert mode to a more calming state of mind. But try the sundowning as well.
Okay, great. So, Dr. Bhatia, let's come back to you. Social jet lag. I mean, people don't really come to you saying, I've got social jet lag, right? How do you really identify that these guys have classic symptoms? Which means, like, what are the so called symptoms which we should sort of look out for? And
So they complain usually of something called as poor sleep. So most often, and as sleep physicians, what we need to do is to take what we call as a 24-hour history, meaning that I start asking them completely what time they go to bed, how much time does it take to fall asleep, what are the awakenings, what time is wake up time, what do they do when they wake up, what is their day like, how much time are they with the tube lights, how much is the activity, what time are meal times. So all that information you receive, then you really get to the bottom of it, that this poor sleep is, why is there poor sleep? So is it a voluntary, just like we said, scrolling? Is it work people are holding? In fact, I've seen two jobs, three jobs, one job fixed, two entrepreneurial kind of activities. Some are doing international work. So there's lots of things going on in people. So we can try and understand what is really happening. So one is this, then they will talk about that I'm forever tired. I can't sleep and I'm tired. I can't concentrate and my brain feels very heavy. They can also come up with headaches, that the head is just bursting all the time. There's just too much going on. Then, of course, along with this, there is nocturnal eating habits, a lot of lethargy, decreased motivation. They can't get out of, so they'll just get up in the middle of the day, start some work, come back, go into bed. Then the health will go down. So you are right. Basic problem is this sleep issue that they come, and the sleep is not good, and my day is not good. Along with it, they have something like inability to lose weight. I'm going to the gym, but nothing is happening. I'm
right,
not eating, but nothing is happening. Nothing will happen because your hormones have all gone wrong.
right.
Your metabolism has gone wrong. So I think that's the basic problems they're coming, but we need to go deeper. Unfortunately, when they say I can't sleep, one easy remedy is what? To take a pill.
Ah, right.
So that's another issue. What is happening, that when they go and complain or they talk to their bhai bandhu, we are all very good at giving advice to each other. I have people who tell me, my wife gave me, my husband will say that you also take it, I'm taking it.
Oh,
Mother
yes.
will tell the son, you daughter, you take it, I'm taking it. So it's like toffees being passed around. So, but not figuring out that why is it that I can't sleep? If I'm on screen, so the other day one lady came, she's on screen till 3 o'clock. Then she says, I try and sleep, but I can't sleep, so I'm awake till 5. So if I can't sleep, I pick up the screen again. So all sorts of things they're doing to pass that time. It's a lot of effort to try and get them off and think. So I think that's the main problem. So mood changes and sleep and just generally not feeling good, unwell.
So, how do you really fix their mid sleep points and, bring them back on track?
Yeah, so first, honestly, at this stage of my life, I've realized, I mean, which of course psychologists and everybody knows, that if the individual doesn't want to do it, then I back off. Because some of them say, "Ki this is," other day somebody told me that at this stage of my life, I'm not changing mine. I'm happy sleeping at 3. In fact, he got quite agitated. And I get up and I'm fine. I get up at 10. So I said, okay, then that's fine. But let's say the other story is that I want help. I have students who are having a very hard time, and people who are not able to hold their jobs because they did this through school and college, and now they can't hold a job when they leave it because they're not able to get up and go for work. So they're changing. First thing that I want to really say, that it can be helped. There's nothing that is not possible if you need help. Second thing is that we need some time. So if you messed up the circadian cycle for few months or few years, so do not think that we can succeed in one day. That you have a visit with me, I give you some instructions, tomorrow sleep cycle will go. So now I lay down these rules. How long? Maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, but be patient. But it will move. So the movement is also barely 30 to 60 minutes at one time. So people are thinking, yes, another day I got somebody who has induced insomnia because trying to change it themselves. So they were sleeping at 3. Then he said, no, no, this is not good. It's a very bad habit. I think I will sleep at 10.
Oh
So
dear.
he went into bed at 10. He didn't sleep for 2 hours. He got more anxious and he's almost has had panic attacks because he got you revved up his sympathetic system so much, that arousal we were talking. So, in short, start by fixing the wake up time. Move the wake up time by 30 to 60 minutes, 45 minutes, that's all. So, if it is 2 p.m., it might sound very strange. Just move it to 1 p.m. Don't start putting alarms at 7 o'clock and shutting that alarm off. And we tell the family also, let them sleep. How often? Then almost 5 to 6 days you can move it by one hour forward. Then what else to do is when you get up, if you're lethargic, tired, take your coffee if you want to take that coffee tea, but go and get some natural light because we need a few thousand lux to shut that melatonin off. That melatonin is like a switch. If you sit inside your dark room, you've not turned that switch off. It'll keep on lingering, you'll get into bed again. So if you can't do, ideally one should get into light and do some stretching because physical activity will shut that sleep desire. But if you can't do it, I say, okay, just get some light. So, two, three is start structuring your meal times. Doesn't matter, you don't feel like eating a very heavy thing, eat something very light, whatever you feel like, fruit, just something. Don't just remain empty stomach and structure your 3 times the meals and physical activity. And then we come to the night. So, the day you structure, night, yes, have a fixed time. So nobody's saying if you're sleeping at 3, you start trying to sleep at 10, it won't happen. So watch your Netflix, do your WhatsApp, whatever you want. But fix a time. Say it's 12, it's 12:30, 1, doesn't matter. Fix it. And then you put it off. And like she said, we also suggest escort the devices out of your room. Don't keep them in a silent mode next to you because
Right.
first thing you'll do is pick it up.
Correct.
So I think, see, in US and other places, we have special clinics which teach one instruction with one visit, and that's what they work. But in India, we don't. I mean, nobody will come like that. So I give normally 2 to 3 instructions. We ask them to fill something called like a sleep diary. They bring it back, meet them 7 to 10 days, and help them move it forward. So it works. I mean, I we moved people a lot, but another problem is they can go back, so they structure it, then one late night at 4 a.m. and they're back. So unfortunately, then they tell us that my whole life will come to a standstill if I can't party. So you party, but you have 1 hour of grace period. So that day, the wake up time, like we said, you cannot sleep in on Sunday. You are allowed 1 hour. So normal wake up time is 7, maybe one to half, 1.5, but you get up, please. Then you are allowed the 3, 4 o'clock. It's a lot of science behind all this, but it works.
So now it's sort of let's wind up. It's time for our pro tip. Rohini, you first. What's your pro tip so that you don't fall into the social jet lag trap?
I'm just going to reiterate what Dr. Bharti was talking about. If there's one thing that you can do, anchor your wake up time. Just anchor it. If you're sleeping on a Saturday or a Sunday, don't sleep in beyond an hour or an hour and a half, because the circadian rhythm is more sensitive to the morning light. It's more sensitive to your sleep wake up time rather than what time you sleep, right? So this also helps in building the sleep pressure, Shrirupa, which means you naturally become tired. You will want to sleep a little earlier, so the Monday blues doesn't happen at all. So there is no jet lag on Monday, right? So sleep in, but don't overdo it. So just anchor your wake up time. Maybe a question for everyone is, ask yourself, what is the difference in the timing for your waking up in between your weekday wake up and your weekend wake up, and kind of work around that. That'll be one pro tip.
Dr. Bhatia, your turn. What's your pro tip?
So I would say that do whatever you can. Don't kind of let this happen to you. So I am a big proponent of sleep being a very big a preventive and a healer and overall important for quality of life. So we shouldn't mess with it, you know. The health is going, it's one of the big pillars of health. So take care of it, prioritize it, so that you can be healthy and improve your quality of life.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhatia and Rohini, for your great insights on social jet lag. It's well worth listening to.
Thank you.
Most welcome.
Don't tune out yet. It's time for the nutrition power tip of the week from nutritionist Sangeeta Iyer.
Slow down eating and eat with fewer distractions. Eating while scrolling on your phone, working, watching TV, or rushing through meals makes it harder to recognize hunger and fullness cues. It often leads to overeating without real awareness. Mindful eating does not mean eating perfectly, it simply means being present during meals.
Thanks for tuning in to the Times of India Health Plus podcast. You can catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or the TOI app. And if you have a health topic you'd like us to discuss, write to us at toihealth.plus@timesofindia.com. Stay healthy and see you next time.